Injury and loss, something that almost every athlete experiences, one or the other, or both. And I've experienced both. So I felt led to really dive into why injury and loss should not be the end of your athletic career. Obviously, there are injuries out there that are absolutely career ending, but there are also injuries that are just setbacks, and more than physically not being able to recover from, they can mentally and emotionally affect you when you are recovering, and they can cause you to feel like, I'm never going to be the same athlete that I was. I'm never going to get back to the strength, to the ability that I was at, especially when an injury happens at the peak, or the spot where you feel like, man, this is the best that I've been doing. This is the strongest that I've been doing. I've gotten the best technique that I've ever had right now. And I'll speak more specifically to jiu-jitsu because this is when I experienced my first major injury as an athlete. So for those who don't know me, I am an MMA amateur fighter, and I have not fought in a few years due to ACL injury, complete ACL tear. And I also do jiu-jitsu. I'm currently a 3-stripe purple belt out of Bellum, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in St. Paul, Minnesota. But before that, I was a track runner. I did basketball, and in elementary school I tried soccer, but primarily the two sports that I played was track and basketball. And I wanted to play football, but they used the excuse that I was too small, but I think it was mainly because I was a girl. So, but anyway, that's not the point. But track and basketball were my main two sports, and I never had it, maybe rolled an ankle or something. The worst thing that I did in track was I injured my hip flexor. And I believe that was from doing long jump and then just constantly running and hitting hard on my right foot when I would come up to jump. And I think it just kind of really messed up my, put a lot of pressure and a lot of tension and overworking my right hip flexor. So that was the only injury that I can think of that was I actually had to take a little time off and do physical therapy for. But outside of that, I had never did anything that needed surgery. In junior high, I had got a hernia during this, it was a physical, a state physical test that they would give everybody, and the top 3 girls and top 3 boys would win a reward. And I got number 1. And during that time, I think I probably was trying super hard. And that's what caused the hernia. But again, that was middle school. But other than that, no major injuries the way the ACL was. So, and to go in how that happened was it was during fight camp that I was practicing with my teammate, doing this, doing the normal routine of what I normally do. And my fight partner basically countered my takedown, and my foot planted super hard, and my knee was like, oh, we're going to keep going, and kept going and popped. And so that was in January of, let's see, I gotta count some years, y'all, because I cannot remember. So it's 2024. It'd be 2 years in August post operation. So that would take us to 2022. So that means 2020, let's see. Yeah, January 2022. That sounds right. So January of 2022 is when I tore my ACL during practice. And so I had an April fight coming up, and I was like, okay, I've never torn anything. Again, like I said, I've never had a major injury. I don't even know what ACL tears feel like, right? So I'm like, okay, it popped, it hurt, my leg went numb, from the knee below for about a second. And you know how when you roll your ankle, there's that type of sensation. There's a pain, kind of a numbing, and you're like, okay, let's just work it out. Like, it'll be fine. So I took like a minute off. I was like, okay, let's try this again. We'll take it slow. And so I start moving and was like, okay, no, it's fine. Like I can feel my leg again. We're good. And I went to step back and I try to angle a lot, and trying to angle, my knee went out, and it did it like 3 times. And so me and my fighting partner was like, okay, maybe it needs more than like a minute. Maybe we just need to take some time off. And I'm like, okay, well, I got a jiu-jitsu tournament in a week. So let me just stop sparring for a little bit. I still have time to figure out, can I fight or not? Let me go to this tournament. That will tell me. Like, jiu-jitsu is, it's intense, but it's not as intense as MMA. So let me see how my knee holds up in this jiu-jitsu tournament. So a week later, I compete, and my knee buckles while I'm competing. And I did decent. And so I was like, but it was in the back of my mind during the whole tournament, and messed up a few moves that I was trying to do because my leg went numb. Like, it would pop and it would go numb. And I was like, okay, I really got to find out what's going on with this, or else I can't fight. Like, it's messing up during a jiu-jitsu tournament. An MMA fight is going to be even worse. So I'm like, okay, let's go get this figured out. So that was like towards the end of January. So February of 2022, I go and get an MRI. And I'm like, okay, what's wrong with my knee? And they're like, oh, you completely tore your ACL. There's no attachment. There's nothing. And I'm like, great. That doesn't sound really good, but how do we get this fixed? Like, that's all I care about. Let's just get this fixed. Tell me what I need to do, right? And you're like, okay, so you need surgery. I'm like, great, figure that. And they're like, oh, be a year recovery. And my brain went from jiu-jitsu has been all that I've been doing. So that would have been, I've been training for 9 years now. So that would have been 7 years at that point. Like, I've been doing this consistently for 7 years. And you're telling me I'm going to have to take a year off from this thing? And the dread just came over. And I'm like, yeah, let me figure out what I want to do. Because they're telling me, some people can actually walk with no ACL. Like, if you're not doing sports and stuff, especially something like MMA and jiu-jitsu, or, probably football, basketball, anything that requires you to do some extra stuff other than just walk yourself to where you need to go and back, you can pretty much go without an ACL. That's what they pretty much tell me. But they're like, if you're planning on doing sports and stuff, like, especially what you're doing, you're going to need an ACL. And if you try to keep going without an ACL, the next thing is you're going to tear your meniscus, which I did not do. But they're like, so you're in a better situation right now to get the surgery now instead of waiting until you tear your meniscus, and now you got 2 things to repair, and it's even longer recovery. And I'm like, yeah, great, And so I go pretty much 6 months without getting it done. I pulled from the fight. Was like, okay, I absolutely can't fight. And was like, I still want to keep practicing. I'll just baby it for a while until I finally come to the point where I'm like, I absolutely need to get this ACL surgery. So I ended up competing in one more competition that June, just to kind of be like, okay, this is my final stamp before I know I had to take a year off. And even talking about it now, I can feel the emotions that I felt when I was telling myself, you're going to have to take a whole year off of MMA and jiu-jitsu. Like, it was painful. And so I ended up going in, finally scheduling the surgery after that tournament, and it was August. So I got my surgery done in August 2022, and recovery started immediately after that. And so I was killing physical therapy, and I'm not just saying that, that's what my physical therapist was saying. So by it was like around 6 months, I was already, because I had been lifting before. So that's one huge thing about when these major injuries happen. If you've already been putting in work and putting in, strength training and stuff like that, it makes recovery a lot easier for you and can be quicker. Obviously, it still puts you out, still a mental and emotional stress and strain, but it helps you. So that's my encouragement to athletes to Not just training your sport, do some strength training also. But anyway, I'm in that tangent. But yeah, so around 6 months, I was actually pretty much at the recovery level of like a 9 month to almost a year person. So technically pretty good, probably could go back, but physical therapist is like most people, we try to push them to wait 2 years post ACL surgery, because that is at the point of where that's the least amount of percentage that you would probably, re-injure it, because back in the day, people were seeing more ACL re-injuries because doctors were sending them back too soon, or physical therapists were sending athletes back too soon, and then it would tear. So from a physical therapist perspective, they're like, wait the full 2 years, or if not even longer. But if you just can't wait, please wait a year. So they were telling me, you're doing really good, but we're not saying that you can go back and compete. So it was around 6 to 9 months, somewhere in there, that I did start lightly practicing again and moving. I was doing only rolling, not like sparring or anything like that, and babying movements that would, trigger that pain in my knee before. And I was doing good. And then finally at a year, I was like, okay, now I can start to, crank up the pressure. And I started to take tournaments and did great. So that's injury. Now I want to go to loss, my biggest loss experience. So as an athlete, I've experienced loss. I've lost races. I've lost basketball games, and I'm very, very competitive. So there's times where when I was younger, I would cry because I was just so like, I let everybody down. My parents and my friends who came and watched me, like I let everybody down. And that was my biggest thing, is like, I feel like I'm representing other people, and they're here to support me, and I want to make them proud. So even more than like myself, I feel like I let other people down when I lose. And so it just was like, I'm an embarrassment to you in a way. And so loss has always been like, I hate losing. I hate it. So my biggest loss in MMA was my last fight. And you can look this up on YouTube. It was for Three Rivers Throwdown for the 105 belt, which I will not fight for at 105 anymore. It's too small for me. Like, anyway, that's we'll make that a whole nother show. But, so for 105 for Three Rivers Throwdown out of Wisconsin. And when I say I was winning up until I wasn't winning, I was kicking butt until the moment that I was not. And I got triangled. And this is no taking away from anything from Charity, who beat me. But I've been in tighter triangles in practice. I was exhausted that round. Like, if anyone knows me, my biggest thing is maintaining and being smart with my cardio. You can build all the cardio in the world, but if you just go out there and use it all up, we are not robots. You're going to gas out at some point. Some people gas out sooner than others, but at some point you're going to gas out if you are not smart with your energy in your gas tank, right? So that's just in general. And my nickname's War Machine. So that explains it. I'm just like, go, 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 go. And I'm trying to learn how to go at the opportunities that require that and slow down when I need to. So this fight, I had a decent pace, but probably was pushing a little too much. And when I went out for this had to be the third round, the second or third round, I can't remember if you go watch the fight. And I had told my corner that I was tired, and I probably should have got different advice. Just for me as a fighter, is not the whole like mind over matter. Like, okay, you're not tired, you're good. Like, obviously, that was good advice, but not for me. I think I should have been told that, like, okay, you are up right now. If you lose this round because you want to take a breather and not pressure her as much, do that, because you're up so much that you can risk one round, right? And maybe would have recovered like halfway through and then would have picked it back up. Whatever. That's the advice I would have, if I could go back, I would have said, that's what I wish I would have heard. But anyway, forget all that. I lost. I'm not making no excuses. I lost. But she caught me in a triangle that was tight enough for me to be like, I'm tired, I'm exhausted, tap, right? Oh my goodness, that was the worst loss for me in MMA, because it was one of those, like I said, it's one of those moments where I'm like, that was my belt. It was my belt up until the point that I was dumb enough to take her down and be like, I'm just going to lay in your guard for just a second. Let me catch my belt, or catch my breath for just a second. No, you can't do that. And so, but leaving out of that cage, I don't know if my two cornermen remember this, but when I walked around the curtains, I burst into tears and was like, I'm never doing this again. I'm done with fighting. This isn't for me. I'm clearly not good. Like, I was just broke, because I think it was the most people had ever came out to come see me fight. They had my t-shirts and everything. And I'm thinking, nobody's ever going to come see me. They're probably going to burn my shirt like War Machine. And she's no War Machine, you know? So it really bothered me. And I really was like, I'm not doing MMA anymore. And just because of loss. But when I look back at both the ACL tear and the loss, it's given me such a different perspective on my sport and how important it is and how I think about it and how I compete just in general. Like, the way I had to baby my knee completely changed my technique and showed me a different angle of how to roll, because I couldn't use what I normally used before. So it actually added another tool to my arsenal for jiu-jitsu. It just completely changed it. I had a different way of moving, a different way of playing the game, that now when my ACL was better, I could blend together or use, one or the other. And with this loss for MMA, let me tell you, being triangle choked is one of the least percentages that I get choked by now. Being triangle choked is like the lowest percentage of far as me getting or me tapping. It's the lowest percentage for me, because now my posture is strong. Like, whenever I get in someone's guard, I'm always anticipating triangles and stuff. And maybe I'm more focused on that sometimes than I should be, because then you can get caught in other stuff because you're so focused on that. But my triangle defense is up. I know that's gonna make my future opponents be like, oh, so you don't think you get triangle choked, right? But anyway, I have a different defense for triangle chokes, So there is an aspect of losing and injuries that is actually a benefit. And it's hard to see that in the moment of your emotions as an athlete, when you've experienced injury or when you've experienced a major loss, whether it's a jiu-jitsu tournament or an MMA match that was super important to you, or whatever it may be. It can in the moment not feel that way. And so I just wanted to use my experience to encourage other athletes, especially if you're going through a recovery of injury, you will get back to your sport. And so I'm specifically talking, more so, it's for any athletes, but more so for jiu-jitsu people, especially with different injuries like this. I've seen another MMA athlete who also has gone through some neat things, and she's been very honest on social media about her struggles. And I get it, because even now there's still things that can kind of mentally get to me, like my flexibility in my right leg can go down certain days depending on if my right knee wants to kind of swell a little bit, which I'm told comes with just post-surgery, that it sometimes takes a few years for your knee to just stop swelling out of protection of, hey, we don't want injury again. And sometimes it doesn't ever go away. It's always a slight swelling. I'm praying that it's not going to be there forever. I have seen it go down more and more and more. But obviously not as quick as I want it to be. I want my knee to be exactly where it was before I had this injury. But there are things that are frustrating, like even the definition in my thighs, like for a while, my right leg was smaller than my left. And for someone who is really, my physique is important to me. Like strength training and all of that is important to me for my sport, but I also want to look good, right? So that bothered me. It was an insecurity too of like, man, I hate the way my legs look. Like they're not the same size. Now I can actually say that they're the same size, but then there's still a lack of definition in my right leg that I see and other people can see when I point it out, but it bothers me, right? And so there's still those, I'm not always like, yay, I'm great. There are days where I'm like, this is so frustrating. And even the strength in my right calf it's a lot better. It's just not quite equal. And there's certain exercises where you can feel it, where it's like, okay, it might only be like 2 to 5 pounds, not as strong compared to the other leg. So I basically cater to that. So I go to the highest strength of my weakest leg to make sure that it catches up until it catches up to the other leg. And I can talk about that too, just how I've trained after ACL surgery and brought myself back to where I am now. I can talk about that, but yeah, it's like there are still things that bother me. My leg gets, like I said, my right leg gets tighter because of the swelling, so the flexibility can go down, or you feel like you made progress, and then maybe for a week or so you're like, what the heck is going on? Like my flexibility was great for the last month, and then all of a sudden this week my knee wants to act a little funny, or be a little more sore than it normally is, stuff like that. But although those things, I'm not perfectly back to the same athlete that I was before, it's made me a different athlete in a good way. And so I just want to encourage people who have had these type of injuries and these type of surgeries or losses, don't let those things be career ending. They don't have to be. So use them to make you a different athlete, which will make you better, and not stop. Don't quit. Don't stop. Keep going. Even the days that it's a struggle, you're inspiring somebody, whether you post it on, social media or not, whatever. That's why I make my post. I would have got rid of social media a long time ago, but I use it, one, so people know that I fight, so promoters can see me, and I do jiu-jitsu, and other, jiu-jitsu promoters can see me. And then of course I love sharing my faith and inviting others to know who Jesus is. Outside of those things, I have a purpose for social media. So I use these things to encourage people. And whether you do that, whether through social media, there might be other people around you that you don't even know that has been like, man, he or she went through that and recovered and is back, rolling their back, fighting their back, whatever injury you may have come from, and have gotten back to yourself. They're seeing them. They're like, wow, whatever I'm going through, maybe it's not a surgery. Maybe it's something else just in life that they are watching you. And they're like, if that person can do it, I can do it. And it's an encouragement. So don't let that be what holds you back, what stops you from continuing to push forward and keep going. And just be patient. That's all I can say is be patient, and don't allow those down moments to be the definition of what your recovery is going to be. Because I've had way more ups and victories in my recovery than days that I felt like this sucks. I wish this would have never happened. Or maybe I should have never had this surgery and just gone with no ACL, because it feels like it's worse than, like the days where I just feel negative, I've had less of those compared to, wow, look at the progress and the strength of my legs. Like now my legs are on this specific exercise the exact same, or now my right leg is actually stronger than my left leg in this exercise. Or you know what, 2 months ago it was 10 pounds weaker, now it's only 2 pounds weaker. Like I've had more of that than I've had the worst things. So with that, I'll just leave you with this: pray without ceasing, nurture your family, and continue to train like a war machine.